On Thursday's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with your boy Flip and your boy Steele, you know we are diving in to the big time bets, locks of the night, and DFS boards, but we're also doing a little fantasy special with players 30 or older who could still make an impact on your fantasy squad.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everyone? And welcome back to your favorite and hottest podcast. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with Flip and Steele. Thank you so much for being back with us again today for Thursday's episode. On today's episode, we know we will be diving in to the beauty Thursday night board, DFS, and betting style. We're also looking at a couple of guys, Steele, 30 or over that still have a lot of fantasy value in the tank. Some guys that are out there in leagues that you can add for a little bump down the stretch. First off, guys, thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. Steele and I really appreciate it. We appreciate all the love as always. Steele, welcome back, my brother. Thursday's episode, you're rolling again with your picks. You're feeling it. You're hot. Thank goodness, because I'm starting to fade again. That's okay. That's what this is all about. Thank you for riding with us, people. We are back. We are back in a big way, and we're taking a look at some guys that, even though they're getting up there in years, they're still effective. They're effective on the ice. They're effective for your fantasy team. Steele, let's get right into it, my friend. Who are we talking about today?
Well, first off, we have to get going with Ryan Getzlaf of the Anaheim Ducks. This has been one of the players that was a free agent, wasn't really drafted prior to the season starting, and he was picked up a tremendous amount back in October and in mid-November because of how well his production was early on in the season. He has slowed down a little bit, back in December and January, but he has picked it up the last 5 or so games. He's been absolutely fantastic for the Anaheim Ducks, really rejuvenated his game compared to last year. 31 points on the season so far, up to date, 17 points all of last year with the Anaheim Ducks. So definitely, he's pretty much already doubled his numbers. He's going to continue to get up there, probably be above 40, 45 points. So he's been fantastic for the Ducks. He's 36 years old. He's showing the way for the young guns still. 347 fantasy points. He doesn't get a ton of shots, but over hit all of the categories. 89 shots, 77 hits, 46 blocks. So he's still, getting his body in front of the shot lane, hitting guys out there. So, obviously he's not going to be one of those guys, one of the stars on your team, but there's a lot of guys on the on the free agent market right now that can be a great addition to your team and can be a lot more productive than guys you already have on your team right now.
Yeah, I think also at the end of the day, we're going to talk about another 36-year-old player in a minute here. The straight up truth is his feet aren't where they used to be, and Getzlab was never a strong skater, which is obviously his biggest downfall. But I think we talked about it in one of our first episodes, Steele, together, was that those hands are still money. And it's clear in his playmaking and distribution ability. I think he only has 3 or 4 goals, but that doesn't take away from his overall value, I would say. He obviously is still an impactful player. And with all these young pieces around him, Steele, the Ducks have done a really good job of getting the most out of him at 36 years old, because I think in a lot of other lines and a lot of other situations, he might not be as effective. But you mentioned it. He's probably available out there in a number of leagues, and he's playing around these young guys like Troy Terry, Sonny Milano, getting some power play time with your boy Trevor Zegras. So that's a really, really good spot for Getzlav to be in, to just even be getting these peripheral apples, right? Like these secondary assists are starting to add up. And that makes a difference, especially, I keep saying it, but down the stretch in fantasy, you need that little jolt. The Ducks are in second place in the Pacific with lots to play for. So don't sleep on a guy like Ryan Getzlaf. I think you said a really good point there, Steele.
Look, he's always been one of the biggest assets of his game. He's a facilitator. He's a passer. He doesn't shoot the puck a lot. That's why he only has 3 goals on the season.
Right.
He's never really been much of a goal scorer in most of his career, but that's the strong suit of his game. He's a facilitator. He's a leader. He's on the power play with these young guys, and he's feeding them the puck, and they're scoring the goals, and that's exactly what we've seen all season. That's why they've been one of the best teams in their division so far.
Right.
I think we need to talk about one of his old teammates, his old line mates, who's been absolutely on fire this season.
You mentioned leadership.
His game has absolutely been ridiculous this season as well compared to 2020. Corey Perry of the Tampa Bay Lightning, one of Ryan Getzlav's old line mates, teammates as well.
Mm-hmm.
He's been absolutely on fire for the Tampa Bay Lightning, 36 years old, 322 fantasy points this season. I've really liked watching him on the Lightnings this year.
I think what you pointed out, he did have a poor season last year overall, but he turned it on the second the Montreal Canadiens were in the playoffs. He was a thorn in every opponent's side from the Toronto Maple Leafs in the first round all the way through to the Cup final. And honestly, at the end of the day, Corey Perry deserves a lot of credit as who I expect to be a shoe-in Hall of Famer, a former Rocket Richard winner, 2-time All-Star, and the 2011 Hart winner, Steele, which I think people forget because it was, that was over a decade ago.
Yeah.
But this guy is a Hart winner and a Rocket Richard winner with an impressive 98.50 goal season that included 11 game-winning goals back in 2011 when he won all those awards. So I just wanted him to show him that love. He's on the veteran minimum, $750K, like along with guys like Spezza, and he's producing, Steele. He had another good night. What was last night? We're always behind in days. Anyway, he had another good night the other night. He's got 15 goals and 14 assists, and he's played in, and I wanted to point this out before I throw it back to you, he's played in all of the Lightning's games this season, all 52 games. Like, show this man some love at soon-to-be 37, same age as Getzlav. This man is still effective on the ice and for your fantasy team. So if you're looking for a little push down the stretch, I forgot to mention, how about a clutch performer? 108 points in 167 postseason games and 401 career regular season goals. So much love to a guy like Corey Perry. I'm getting fired up right now, Steele, because I have him in a couple of different formats, and it's just been like fool's gold. Don't get me wrong. It's a lucky pick, but I would say if you can, add this guy down the stretch because he does a little bit of everything.
Look, and we said this about Ryan Getzlaf. Both of these guys have bounced back in ways that, is really great to see.
Mm-hmm.
Like you mentioned, he has 15 goals. He has 29 points on the season. The 2 previous seasons before this one, he had 21 points in both of those seasons with the Montreal Canadiens and the Dallas Stars. So definitely been a lot better with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And it's just glad to see. You can always find these type of guys on the free agent market. Mm-hmm. And this is how you win your matchups. You go on the market, you find these type of guys, you can pick them up, for a couple of games a week, or they just fill for the entirety of the season if they're playing that good. So this is what's really helped me so far this year. I'm able to go to the free agent market, find guys like Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaf, use them for a week's time, and then I'm able to drop them again and maybe pick them up 3 weeks down the line. So these are the type of guys you have to look for to help your fantasy team and really put your team over the top so you can win and, make all that money depending on how much you're betting in your league. But you're absolutely right with Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaf. These guys have been playing absolutely insane for their team and really helped them along the way. Tampa Bay Lightning being first in the Atlantic Division now. Florida has dropped down. I was just thinking about this right now. Corey Perry's been in the last 2 Stanley Cup finals with the Dallas Stars and the Montreal Canadiens.
There you go.
Both of them losing to the Tampa Bay Lightning.
And
which way do you think this goes? Does he win the Stanley Cup this year with the Tampa Bay Lightning, or does he go 3 back-to-back losses in the finals?
You can't ignore, though, his quality. And I mentioned the playoff performance. So, obviously he's not the be-all and end-all for this, but the guy has been there. He's a cup winner, gold medal winner.
Yeah.
Like, he's clutch. So look for him down the stretch. And he's been hot of late. 3 goals and 3 assists over his last 5 games. If you get him in one of those weeks where he's 5 or 6 points from Corey Perry, I can almost guarantee you're winning your week. So keep an eye on these guys. I was also going to talk about a guy like Riley Smith, 30 years and older. So, keep an eye on some of these older players that a lot of guys in your league, fantasy-wise, might not be looking at. But what Steele and I are always looking at, it's BetOnline. Football might be over this season, but we know basketball, it's full steam ahead for both pro and college hoops. For all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next coach is going to land, betonline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all the sports scores, podcasts, and news this season, and it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, UFC, and every odd that you'll be looking for. Head to the website today and use your mobile device to find out about what trends and all the action. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. For your next listen, you have to go check out Locked On Now, nightly recaps of every NHL game with analysis from our local experts. You don't want to miss out on this. It's absolutely awesome to watch. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts, like this podcast right here. So please make sure you go follow, go subscribe to Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Flip and I appreciate all the support, all the love out there you give us. So thank you so much for that. Mm-hmm. Flip, a lot of games on Thursday night for DFS. I think there's nine games in total? Nine games in total for Thursday night. A lot of interesting, juicy matchups that I was looking at.
Lots.
I think the first matchup that I'm going to be discussing here is pretty much, we're going to be on the same page. You can't go wrong with this team. I'm not sure how you're going to react for the second matchup. It's a shot in the dark, but with the way the trend has been going, you have to take a look at this team.
Okay.
I'll start off, Flip.
Let's do it.
I think you can't go wrong with the Calgary Flames versus the Montreal Canadiens. For me, that's an easy slam dunk right there. Johnny Gaudreau, Elias Lindholm, Matthew Tkachuk. We've talked about these guys over the last week and a half, ever since Tyler Toffoli has joined their team. They've been absolutely dominant.
No one's been better.
They have not the best line,
no one's been
best line in hockey right now. They combined for 6 points on Tuesday night in that win on Tuesday night. You know, you can also throw in guys like Michael Backlund, Blake Coleman, who we've discussed a lot on this podcast. So those are going to be some cheap options. Of course, with those three guys, Gaudreau, Lindholm, and Tkachuk, they're going to be premium price. You're paying over $7,000, $6,500, you know, depending on the actual player, but it's going to be premium price, expensive. But I say this every time, they're worth it because of how productive they are up front offensively. You can't deny how great they've been. You know, Montreal has been great in the last 6 games. They got absolutely smoked against the Winnipeg Jets. I'm going to fall back on the Calgary Flames for this matchup Thursday night.
You can't go wrong with it, Steele. I would say this, though. You know, be careful, like you said, you can blow your budget pretty quickly on the Calgary Flames with how good they're playing. But I would also potentially put aside some money for Jakob Markstrom. I know you were talking up Shesterkin yesterday, and I had to check you quickly just because as much as Shesterkin, you know, might be right there as, you know, a neck and neck favorite or even the favorite, Markstrom deserves a lot of love. And I think this is, you know, rolling into Montreal. As much as they have played well, like credit due, playing a lot better, clicking more offensively, looking like a much more confident team. There's probably going to be a lot of trades coming up in the next couple of weeks for the Montreal Canadiens, so I don't think this is going to last, whereas the Calgary Flames are very much pushing for a Stanley Cup now. It's clear. Rumors are still swirling around about them adding a D-man on the blue line, which I think is really the only thing that they're missing. When they're playing like this, look out, because, you know, the Western Conference is up for grabs. They're in first place. Let's not get it twisted. I like what you're doing here. I would also look to another Canadian West Coast team in an advantageous situation for the Edmonton Oilers against the Chicago Blackhawks. Look down their lineup for some value. Derrick Ryan has been on fire. You're not going to pay a lot of money for him. He's one of these streaky scorers that literally has like 3 hat trick games and then disappears for a season. So hit him while he's hot right now. Look down that lineup a little bit. Even guys like Evander Kane and Derrick Ryan. So that's where I would be looking, Steele, for a little bit of value to kind of offset your big hitters there on the Calgary Flames.
I like the Derrick Ryan look a lot. He has been given an opportunity because of that Ryan Nugent-Hopkins injury. They've been using him a lot more to fill in that gap. So I absolutely love that pick. I watched that game against the Florida Panthers, and he was absolutely lights out for them. He got his he had 3 goals in that game, and then he scored again the next day as well. So I like that pick. Evander Kane, he's on the score sheet. I don't like the way he's been playing, but he is still getting on the score sheet, so you can't go wrong with that. This is the game where I don't think we're going to agree on.
Okay.
This is for me. It's a shot in the dark. It's something I would never typically do.
Potential side bet situation.
No, there could be a side bet, but I don't think so because
let's hear it.
It's out there. It's out there.
I like it.
I usually don't do this because, I don't like to bet against one of my favorite teams, but it has to be done. The Minnesota Wild are on a 4-game losing streak.
Yep.
Capo Kakkonen he's played relatively solid, even though he's lost the games. Talbot, on the other hand, has not been.
No, he's not been good.
Up to, not even close to where he was at the beginning of the season. He's let me down in my fantasy league the last week and a half.
You sound a bit pissed, to be honest.
I am a little bit ticked off, so I'm trying not to get too emotional here, but
yeah, it's okay. I'm with you.
Listen, four losses in a row for the Minnesota Wild, and they're playing the Philadelphia Flyers.
Where are you going with this?
It's up there, Flip.
Let's hear it.
There.
Spit it out, Steele.
I have to pick some of the players on the Philadelphia Flyers for DFS.
Let's get it.
I have to give it a shot.
Yeah.
Claude Giroux, but I'm not going with just, anybody on their team. I'm going with the guys who have been the most productive.
Yeah.
Claude Giroux, Cam Atkinson, by far been the best players for
Atkinson's
the Philadelphia
having a
Flyers.
great year. Why not?
He's having a fantastic season.
Yeah.
I absolutely love watching him play in that Philadelphia jersey. So I think he's found himself a really nice home. Hopefully they can turn it around for him so that he would want to stay there. But again, Claude Giroux and Cam Atkinson have been the best forwards, the best players for the Philadelphia Flyers. This would be the time to pick those type of players when they're going up against a team that has, been trending in the wrong direction. They could find themselves in a wild card soon. Minnesota really needs to step up their game. You could also go with the Wild as well, because this could be a game where they need to bounce back against, a lower tier team.
I think you're taking the right angle here, Steele, and you can't help but feel that they might be in for a little bit of a lengthy losing streak when you can't put your finger on what's happening. Sometimes you watch a team and it's like, okay, they're not killing penalties. Okay, they're not scoring. Okay, right now the Minnesota Wild are doing a little bit of everything poorly, and that usually means a lengthy skid. And look at what's happened. 4 games already. I could see this going 5 or 6 games. So I like what you're working with here. And where I would go, and it's where I'm going to go with one of my picks, is the Carolina Hurricanes have a couple of good players in the mix right now that you mentioned the other day that I like this spot against Washington, a team that's struggling to score. Only 5 goals in the last 3 games, the Washington Capitals, and we'll talk about that in a couple of seconds here. Hang on for the best bets and locks of the night coming up around the break. But Trocheck, Toivu Teravainen, you mentioned some of these guys. If you haven't blown your budget, take a look at that. But where I'm really liking is Freddy Anderson in net. I mentioned the Caps struggling to score. If you're looking for a goalie on the night, I double circle Frederick Anderson because, one, he plays well against the Caps over his career in the regular season and in the playoffs. Number 2, and I'll break it down a little bit more, but they're just struggling to score. So keep your eye on Freddy Anderson and maybe a couple of the Hurricanes as well, Steele.
You mentioned, 2 of the top 3 goalies in the league right now, Jacob Markstrom and Frederick Anderson. So you can't go wrong with either of those guys, especially in these type of matchup. Like I said before, the Canadians, they have bounced back a little bit. They've won 5 of their last 6 games. The Washington Capitals have been on a skid. You can't go wrong with either Anderson or Markstrom in net. And again, that's also why I went with guys like Claude Giroux and Cam Atkinson. So even though they're the best players on their team, they shouldn't be as expensive. So that's why you could go with guys from that entire top line from the Calgary Flames. But I love everything you said there. You have to go, with guys on the Carolina Hurricanes, one of the best teams in the league right now. Teuvo Teravainen, Vincent Trocheck he's a very underrated player. I always think back to what, that little dispute with Brad Marchand, calling him a Prius, and then you can't compare a Prius to a Lamborghini. I thought that was hilarious. And ever since then, he's really stepped it up. So I like that a lot. I like your picks right there. I'm excited to see what you have for DFS. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. Make sure you hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. We're free and available on your favorite podcast platform. We appreciate all the support. So thank you so much for all the love out there. Flip, I'm very intrigued to see where you go with your big time bet selections here. I know I've got a couple of advantageous selections here, two coming from one game, but I'll throw it over to you for your first pick.
I also have two coming from one game, including my lock of the night. So I'll save those two for the very end. But I did want to say this. For tomorrow's episode, make sure you stay tuned because we're going to have our very first live guest on, longtime writer of The Score and a good friend of the show, Mr. Josh Wegman, used to lead up one of the fantasy divisions at The Score, hockey guru. So stay tuned. He's going to be jumping on. He's going to be giving you some of his picks, some of his advice. So make sure you keep it locked. Make sure, like Steele said, you subscribe and don't miss any episode the second it comes out, 7 a.m. Eastern time. Now, Steele, we talked about it quickly off air. I'm going to hit you with my first pick, which is the Carolina Hurricanes. I alluded to it just before the break. I think this is one of those spots that, despite Carolina losing the last three games against Washington, I like this spot for Carolina overall. 5-1 over their last 6 games. We know that they're a really good team. We know that they have great pieces up front on the blue line and in net. We just talked about Freddy. Believe it or not, he is a very good goalie. He's had a great season. And you can't help but feel, I mentioned it to you, this off-ice situation between Russia and Ukraine seems to really be weighing on the Russian players on the Washington Capitals and the players around the league and all Russian athletes for that matter, and of course Ukrainian ones as well. We're not going to get into politics. We're not going to talk about either side, whatever. We're here to talk about bets and the impact it's having, and clearly it is. CCM dropped all Russian players from their promo, and I read a report yesterday, a real one, that Russian players are receiving death threats and all kinds of stuff on social media. So this is getting ugly, and you can't help but feel that it's affecting them. Ovechkin is clearly affected. Washington is not playing good right now, and they have key players that are Russian. Orlov, Kuznetsov, Samsonov. So these are key pieces, Steele, and don't get me wrong, this is a crazy situation, but if you want to talk about it from a betting one, these games are still going to be played. So do your research, make sure you watch these games, but it's clear that this is a good spot for Carolina. Hurricanes money line -143. The Caps just don't look good right now in general, and we talked about them struggling to score. Carolina 5-1, rolling again. What do you do in this situation? You got to hammer the Hurricanes. -143 is a pretty good odds, Steal, and that's my first pick of the night. You can lock that one in.
I like that pick right there. And, the Washington Capitals, they're in the same kind of boat that the Minnesota Wild are in right now, where they can find themselves in a wild card spot because it is not far-fetched. The Columbus Blue Jackets are right on their tail. They're only 8 points back. They have a couple of games in hand, and the way that the Washington Capitals have been playing and the way they're trending right now, it doesn't look good. So they do really have to step it up. But again, going up against this Carolina Hurricanes team, a juggernaut in the Eastern Conference, probably going to be one of the Final Four teams in the playoffs this season because
kind of crazy to say that, eh? Juggernaut in the East, but it's true.
It is true. But
it's just
there's a lot of juggernauts out there.
Juggernaut Florida Panthers, juggernaut Tampa Bay Lightning. What is going on here in the Eastern Conference? So it's an interesting point that you bring up. But sorry, brother, please continue.
No. It is crazy to think about of how many teams, solid juggernaut teams, are coming out from the East. I say this a lot. It's literally looked like a complete 180 compared over a decade ago, where all the teams were coming out of the Western Conference. Now we're seeing them come out of the Eastern. I love to see it. My first pick is going to be the Panthers puck line against the Ottawa Senators. The puck line guru here.
Here he is.
You can't go wrong. I've been red hot with these picks so far. My Patrick Laine anytime goal hit on Tuesday night. The puck line's been hitting too. It's just too enticing to me. It's right there for the taking. I had to pick it. Panthers puck line versus the Ottawa Senators. I don't even think I have to explain any further than that because, I could just say Barkov and Huberdeau and leave it
You
at
might
that.
have to explain your hate for the Ottawa Senators because our Ottawa fan base is not. Thank goodness I've been talking them up a little bit because I'm officially about to say that you're an Ottawa hater. I don't think you bet against them at every opportunity.
When this matchup is so enticing like this, you have to. I'm not an Ottawa hater. I think they have a lot going for them. They have a lot of young players right there. You mentioned it: Josh Norris, Drake Batherson, Brady Tkachuk, Thomas Chabot. They have a lot going for them, but they just haven't been able to, fit the pieces in together to make it, start, being consistent in the right direction.
And the injuries have obviously played, injuries to your two other than Tkachuk most important forwards. So, that's a whole other thing. That's a whole other show. But what was the pick again, please, for the people out there?
Panthers puck line versus the Ottawa Senators. I just think it's too juicy not to pick them offensively, defensively, in the crease. Florida is just way better than the Ottawa Senators. I'll quickly list my last two picks, which
please do
will be one of my locks of the night. It is the Calgary Flames money line versus the Montreal Canadiens. I'm not going to get too fancy with this one. I think the Montreal Canadiens could win by more than 2 goals. I'm going to stick with the money line just because of how great they've been playing the last 3 weeks to a month. Playing it safe with this pick. My lock of the night is going to be a Johnny Gaudreau anytime assist at plus 100.
Okay.
He's been absolutely fire for the Calgary Flames. Top 10 in scoring this season.
Big reason why they've had such a turnaround other than
big reason. I hope he can continue this play, heading into the playoffs, but he's been absolutely dominant so far in the regular season.
Yeah, and Calgary Flames fans have been on him every second that he struggles. And the second that, and for, he's earned their respect back with the way that he's played. And he seems to be one of those players that just gets the room going. I've never played hockey with Johnny Gaudreau, but he just seems like that guy, right? He goes out there, he scores a goal, he looks down the bench and goes, "Let's freaking go, boys." And you're like, point me in the direction of the nearest brick wall. But anyway, so that's exciting to see for Calgary Flames fans. It's nicer. The Edmonton Oilers have plagued the West Coast hockey teams, in their name for the last couple of years, but in terms of not performing. But anyway, speaking of which, why don't we talk about those Edmonton Oilers? Because for some reason, Steele, I'm glutton for the punishment with this team. One night I'm telling you to bet them for the Stanley Cup for the odds. The next night they're losing 7-3, and then they're going on and winning 4 games. I don't really know what's going on long term, but I do know this. They have a lot to play for, and I keep talking about this, but these are the angles that you have to hammer right now because the Oilers have a 6-2 record in their last 8 games away from home, and while they haven't played well against Chicago, winning only once in their last 6, they are a good road team, believe it or not. They actually have more wins on the road, 16, than they do at home, 14. So they are a good road team, believe it or not. And they are, they are closing on that second place spot, 2 points back of the LA Kings in that division. And these hockey games are really important for Edmonton right now. And I like the new head coach. I think this team is starting to really play the right way. And we know the issues are in net. We know they're only going to go as far as McDavid carries them. I'm not talking about a playoff run. I'm talking about a game on the road against the Chicago Blackhawks, one in which they really need for the playoff race. Once the playoffs hit, who knows? But I have a feeling you're going to see a lot better hockey down the stretch from McDavid and Draisaitl, who have been at times ghosts, but still leading the league. And McDavid still got 77 points. So anyway, Edmonton Oilers on the puck line -1.5, and McDavid anytime assist for my lock of the night is McDavid anytime assist. I'm doubling down on the Oilers. Despite the inconsistency, Steele, 77 points for McDavid to still lead the league. This is crazy. Only his assist is only behind Huberdeau, who is having a MVP type season himself. Yeah. McDavid has 3 goals and 10 assists in 13 career regular season games versus Chicago, and I expect a big night from 97 tonight. Hammer 97, hammer the Oilers. McDavid anytime assist, my lock of the night, and my other pick, Oilers puck line -1.5.
I love it. You can never go wrong with an anytime assist from Connor McDavid. He's pretty much bound it's more surprising when he doesn't have an assist in a night.
The odds will not be great, but still money to be made there. Parlay it with the Oilers on the puck line. Sprinkle a 50 piece on it, and let's collect our loot.
All right, love it. Flips, lock of the night. Anytime assist from Connor McDavid. My lock of the night is anytime assist from Johnny Gaudreau. I love that we're having the player props a lot more, and they're becoming a lot more of our lock of the night.
And they're hitting.
They are hitting. They've been hitting for us. You've been on a roll the last week, so I love to see it. Lock of the night, anytime assist, Gaudreau and McDavid from both Flip and I. Pencil it in, lock it in, make your money. Thank you so much for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. If you want more gambling advice on what you should pick, but for not just hockey, you got to go check out Locked On Bets. Make it your second listen of the day for your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets is hosted by your boy Q with insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all podcast platforms, just like this podcast right here. So please go make sure you subscribe, go follow us. And once you do, you'll get the latest episodes of Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast as soon as they're available each and every day, 7 o'clock in the morning, Eastern time, Monday to Friday. Hit the subscribe, hit the follow. Flip and I appreciate all the support. And like Flip said, make sure you're tuning in for Friday's episode. We're having a special guest on for there, so you don't want to miss out. Friday's episode is going to be big time. Thank you again for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.